Hi everybody, welcome back. Tony from Shinsho Yoga, and today I want to talk about downward facing dog. Probably the most recognized, well known, most talked about pose in yoga. Even people who don't do yoga will always say, "Oh, you're doing your down dogs," things like that. But often can be, like any other pose, not done properly for each person's body. Every pose has modifications to it, just as downward facing dog does. One of the challenges that you run into with downward facing dog is you can't see yourself when you do it. Certain poses you can see. If your studio that you practice at has mirrors, which I don't recommend watching yourself in the mirror because you can get way too caught up in that. Instead of feeling the pose, instead you'll be watching the pose, but they can be helpful. So, in a standing pose, sometimes you can notice if you're leaning one way or leaning another, or maybe the position of your arms or your shoulders and things like that, to be able to try to realign yourself. But in downward facing dog, you can't. Your head is down, your hips are high. So I want to be able to offer today some modifications you can make, how you should be doing downward facing dog for your body. And the modifications that you would have with it. Downward facing dog you will see in pretty much any vinyasa flow. Generally it comes in what's called the sun salutation A or the sun salutation B, usually both of those, but also generally in any type of warm-up in the beginning. So a regularly used pose and extremely helpful. Down dog is an inversion. It is not meant to open the back of the body. Although secondary function of the posture can be to open the back of the body, but its primary physical function is an inversion, and you want the head below the heart. And this is what you have to keep in mind in this posture, because often in this posture, especially people who are newer to it or who have really only done what I would call gym yoga, meaning they go to the gym and they're doing the yoga as if they would do Pilates or any other exercises, where they haven't necessarily been to a studio or worked with a dedicated yoga teacher. So they can come into this kind of humpback position, which isn't proper for their body, isn't proper for the position at all. So down dog, there's two things that you want to remember in this position. One, head below the heart. Two, hips high, right? Getting the head below the heart and getting the hips high. And there is a way you come around to doing that, right? With hips high, it doesn't mean legs straight. In downward facing dog, probably for the majority of people, especially if you have tight back of the legs or tight hips, you're going to bend the knees. Again, the posture is not meant for the opening of the back of the body, although that is a secondary or ancillary effect of the posture, especially done over time. It is meant to be an inversion, to have the head below the heart. In yoga, we do lots of inversions. Forward fold is an inversion. You want the head below the heart, so you bend your knees on that. Downward facing dog, you want the head below the heart, so you bend your knees on that. Again, for most people. This is where the modifications in the pose come in. What you do with your legs and what you do with your arms are going to be different for each person in this posture, right? Depending on what you do. If you have tightness in the back of the legs, right, in the back of the body, you're going to want to bend the knees in your downward facing dog. It is not required to have the heels down. It is not required to have the legs straight. You want the hips to come high, and you'll need to do that to access that properly, to let the head drop below the heart with a bending of the knees, right? Just enough to be able to bring it in, and I'll demonstrate that in a moment. The other thing that you're going to want to play with is an outward rotation of the palms, right, in your posture. Now, this may be something that you've actually had a teacher to tell you not to do. That's not correct. It's going to be dependent on your body. I've had even other teachers come up to me and seen me do it and go, "Why are you doing it that way?" And I have to explain to them why. I have done some Iyengar training. I'm not Iyengar certified, but Iyengar yoga is all alignment based. So with that, these are the people that taught me how to do it this way, where their whole focus is alignment. So depending on your body, where you rotate your palms is going to be important. So if we look at me here this way with my hands forward like this, my fingers pointing forward, there's a bit of a bow, right? If I have my hands here, there's a bit of a bow to my arms. But if I rotate the palms, my arms go straight, the eyes of the elbows come forward, and now any support is no longer coming up and going out the elbow, right? Where it would be here, the energy would go out the elbow. Here, it comes straight up the arm and along the side body, right? So from here to here. So for me in downward facing dog, I always rotate my hands out. There's some times that I'm able to do it without it, but the majority of the time you'll see an outward rotation. This is going to be different for each person. I had a student once whose hands, when they were forward like this, the eye of the elbow was already pointing forward. So if they rotated out, it would be hyper-rotated in the opposite direction. What you want is to have these pointing forward. Again, as my teacher called them, the eyes of the elbows. Bringing these forward, we want the arms straight, right? Versus this, what I like to call a bulldog, right? Where the energy comes up and out the elbow, right? By doing this, now it comes up and along the side body. This will remove complications that you have with the shoulders and often can take the strain off the wrists. One of the biggest challenges a lot of people have in downward facing dog is strain on the wrist, right? So that can take it out of it. So let me give you a little demonstration of what I am talking about here with downward facing dog. So downward facing dog, I'm going to automatically turn my hands out, tuck my back toes under, and press back. Now you'll see here, again, not just that I have skinny legs, but my knees are bent. One of the things I do in the posture is I will often add a deep bend to the knee, press the hips high, and then offer a straightening to the legs. Now my legs are not straight, but they're not just like this. Now, if I take my hands and I turn them in this way, right, what it does is now my head is coming more in line with my heart. I don't want that. I want the head below the heart. So what I do is I turn out and press back. One of the things you want to be careful of in the posture is going too short in your dog. Sometimes I've seen people who will do a downward facing dog like this. That's not correct. You want to be able to, in your dog, be able to transition from plank back to down dog without having to shuffle. Right? So if you're here and you're walking your hands out, that's too short. You want to have it be long enough that you can transition between the two. So again, for me, to take the support out of the head of the shoulder and run it along the side body, I rotate the palms out. My knees are bent. I press my hips high. I allow my head to relax. And then I offer whatever straightening of the leg I can. My head below my heart, and I breathe. Length of the dog to test. Can you roll forward to a plank without having to make major adjustments? Okay, pressing back. And again, when I press back, make that adjustment. Hips high.
Now, as time has gone on, I can take a little bit of that rotation out of the head of my shoulder here and keep it relatively high, but I'm fighting it. So don't bother fighting it. Rotate out. Press back.
So, down dog, inversion, head below the heart. If you have tightness in the back of the body, bend the knees. Let the hips go high. Play with an outward rotation of the palms, taking the support out of the head of the shoulder, running it along the side body. Breathe. And as always, that's what it comes back to, the breath. As your thoughts arise, acknowledge them, allow them to pass by, and return to the breath. Namaste.